Today on The Hustle by Hanna, I'm joined by Amy Liu, CEO and founder of Tower 28 Beauty, one of Sephora's fastest growing makeup brands. Not only did she start this company without outside funding, but she did it with 3 kids at the age of 40, assigned to never give up. In under 5 years, sales tripled year over year and went viral on TikTok with millions of views and expanded to 600 plus Sephora stores, as well as international expansion. Built from her own battle with eczema, Tower 28 is the first and only brand to follow the National Eczema Association's ingredient guidelines. Its Hero SOS spray became a cult favorite product, and Amy's leadership has turned a small startup into a global movement for clean, accessible, and sensitive skin beauty. Her company culture is built on 4 key values: hustle, ownership, cool, and Kaizen, meaning continuous improvement. Her story is proof that it's never too late to bet on yourself. This is The Hustle by Hanna. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for coming on The Hustle by Hanna. You're not only the founder of a product that I use and love, but I've heard your story, and there's a lot to be said about your upbringing influencing your career and the steps that you took to get here.
My parents immigrated from Taiwan in the 70s. I was born in Minnesota. They were very much immigrants in a time where there were not a lot of immigrants. They have this really funny picture of themselves from the local newspaper in Austin, Minnesota. And the headline is like, "First Orientals come to town." And I only mentioned that to say I really grew up feeling very much Asian American since I was born here. And I think I grew up in predominantly, honestly, white communities growing up. And I think I grew up in a time when I didn't see a lot of people who looked like me in pop culture, and certainly not in any type of an avenue where I saw myself, right? And I think fast forwarding to where I am today, part of my fascination in working in the beauty industry is I think that we have this really interesting opportunity to really impact the way that people see themselves, and specifically a lot of times women, because I think so much of confidence is derived from this idea of feeling beautiful. That's something that really can either hinder or in a lot of ways can really help people in their path to kind of fulfilling their own potential. But also growing up, I think because my parents were immigrants, my parents are, native Chinese speakers. They actually speak English quite well now. They went to graduate school here, so they are educated here in America as well. Being here as minorities, my dad decided to become an entrepreneur as opposed to, he took every job in the beginning. He was like a janitor, he was a newsboy, he was a chef at like a fast food restaurant. And he did all these kind of jobs. But when he went to go get a full-time job, I think he really felt like he couldn't get past like this glass ceiling by working for other people because he didn't, frankly, speak the language well enough. So instead, he decided to become an entrepreneur. And I think the impact it had on me was I grew up really looking at him and seeing how much he felt all the highs and the lows and how much he loved it. And, I saw my mom similarly have a job, and she was an auditor, an information systems auditor. And to be honest with you, I still don't even know what that means. Like, never talked about it. She left at the same time every day. She came home at the same time. She was very reliable, and like her career felt really steady, but not very passionate. Where my dad's career from afar, and by the way, he had to close down his business at one point, and it was a whole thing, but like he had the highs, and he had the lows too, but like I could tell he felt it. And I think just looking at those 2 examples in front of me, I was like, I want that one. I want the one where I can like feel it. And it really means something to me, as opposed to my mom was at work was like this thing that you just sort of like checked off a box, and just came home. But that was one of the things that I think from a really young age made me want to be an entrepreneur.
Did you think or know what an entrepreneur was besides what you saw with your dad? Was there another influence that you said, the passion is there and I want to build something?
It's such a different time now, right? Now we hear all these stories about entrepreneurs and how they did it and who they were. And like, I didn't see women, much less I didn't see Asian people. I didn't see women. I didn't see entrepreneurs. I grew up in a small town. From 6th grade on, I grew up in a small town in the east side of LA called Claremont. And it's a lovely town, but it's a small town, like 35,000 people, or at least it was back then. And, people there had jobs being a lawyer, a doctor, a dentist, there used to be this game that, the game of life. The game of life was like, you get You literally in the game get married, you have a kid, you get a job, and it
Mm-hmm.
was like, do you get a job that has a college career or do you get, I mean, it sort of implicitly taught you all these things, but one of the options was never entrepreneur, right? That was never a thing. Fast forward to when I raised money, I didn't know that was, even though I had read about people like Glossier had already happened when I raised money. And so it's not like I didn't understand that people did this, but I didn't understand that I could. And I think so much of what I try to do today is really think about like how you do really have to see it to be it in life, right? Like you have to see people doing the thing that you want to do in order to think it's possible. Otherwise, you feel really limited by what is around you.
If you weren't an entrepreneur at that age, what did you want to be?
No one's ever actually ever asked me that. So when I was really young, I mean, now it seems so silly because I've worked in beauty for such a long time now. But when I was really young, I think I wanted to be a journalist. But the truth is, I think I only wanted to be a journalist because my parents thought I should be a journalist. And I think when you're young, you kind of like take on whatever your parents' dreams are for you. It's funny because now I know Lisa Ling a little bit. Like I saw people like Lisa Ling or like Connie Chung, and you saw like again like the see it to be it. There were a few instances of there's like one Asian person that was doing X, Y, or Z, and I was like, okay, so maybe that's an option for me. But I've never done anything, quite honestly, to pursue journalism.
Well, your career didn't bring you to journalism, but we both got our MBAs. And I think one thing when I was getting my MBA was you traditionally go into the roles that people around you, like you said, go into, and that was consulting. What was that like? Did you see any type of passion? I haven't really heard consultants that are so passionate about what they're doing, but did you learn things along the way that led you towards starting Tower 28?
I think the thing that consulting taught me, so I worked at Accenture. The idea was you got put on a lot of different projects and in really different industries. So I, for instance, worked at Amgen, which is like a pharmaceutical company, and then I also worked at the New Mexico Child Protective Services, which is like a
Wow.
governmental agency. And then I did like whatever. I did different things, and I think the thing that's interesting from consulting is you get dropped into an industry you know nothing about. You get dropped into oftentimes like an information system or technology that you also don't know anything about. Like I would have to learn how to code in Visual Basic and C++, and then I would have to learn how to do like this other system. And I think the thing that that teaches you is that you can learn. It became less intimidating to me to like get dropped into something that I didn't know because it happened so many times where I was like, I don't know anything. And yet I have the ability to learn it. And I think that's like an important muscle to learn how to build. It's just the ability to learn a new industry or skill. And I think you hopefully you get some sort of like consistency in your career where you like start getting deeper into a function or into an industry. For me, it was industry. But I think that was something really valuable I learned from consulting.
And what did you see in the beauty industry at the time that you thought this is where I need to transition into or stay and build, like you said?
Yeah, I mean, that makes it seem like I was so like thoughtful about it. I mean, the truth is so I worked at Accenture and I decided I wanted to go back to business school because I wanted to change careers, but I didn't know how to do it. I applied for a
Hmm.
bunch of jobs. I remember I'd already been working in consulting for 2 years and I applied to a job in advertising. And I still remember, I think they offered me like, I got the job on the spot and they were like, great, you can start ASAP. We'll offer you, I think it was like $19,000. And I almost started
What?
crying in the actual interview. And at the time I was making like 50.
Yeah.
And I think they offered me like 19. And I almost started like my tears welled into my eyes because I was so upset. I was like, wait a minute. I have to start all the way at the beginning again, even though I've had arguably a pretty good job. And so I went to business school because I wanted to change careers. That was a reason I went. So I went to USC 2 years out of college, and I was really young at the time when I went back to business school, but I did it for that purpose. And I had what I kind of called my quarter life crisis. And so I read all these books. I read a book called What Should I Do with My Life? That's the real title of it. And I
Wow.
read another book called what color is my parachute? And it's like more of a worksheet to kind of like find yourself and figure out what your career path should be. Basically, I really tried to think about like what am I good at and what do I like to do? And I really thought about the fact that like I've always loved reading magazines. I don't know, a stereotypical woman in a lot of ways where I like beauty. I like these things that like I like beautiful things,
Uh-huh.
and wanted something that I could see in real life. Like I wanted to be able to feel the impact of what I was doing in real life, because I think coming from consulting, a lot of that is like behind the scenes, data systems and things that you're doing in the background that I don't know, you can't like tangibly touch or feel. And so I really thought, oh, it'd be so cool to work in like fashion or beauty. And I thought about fashion for about 2 seconds. And then I found out that fashion is actually super, it's just much more subjective, right? So like what's cool is harder to figure out, where beauty is much more linear. It's a lot more like, I don't know, is pink lipstick ever out of style? Pink will always be in style. Brown, like a pinky mauve or pinky brown lip gloss will always be in style. And so
Uh-huh.
there's just like a little bit more of a fact basis almost. And I'm a bit more of a linear thinker. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe this is more for me. And so I decided to go into beauty. And I loved the fact that I could, like, I don't know, help women feel more beautiful. And I loved that it was like a sexy industry. I remember my first job in beauty was at L'Oreal. And I did my internship there working for Maybelline. And it was time for my performance review. And my boss was like, I just don't, I need you to spend more time like reading magazines. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And she was like, I feel like I never walk by your desk and just see you like reading magazines. I was like, I'm allowed to read magazines at work? What do you
You're
mean?
like, best job ever.
I was like, this is like the best job ever. I loved like the fun and the beauty, quite literally the beauty of it.
That's amazing. And I imagine at that point you saw more women in these roles, so it could have been a trigger to move forward and see where you could grow, at least in a leadership position. Is
Yeah.
that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is at that time, so I just got my first job in beauty in 2002. And
Hmm.
so at that time, there were actually not that many women at the top. So there were women definitely in beauty, but the very tippy top, like the CEO, president roles, there were some VPs, but I would even say like half, only sales and marketing, almost never like a CFO, almost never a CEO. And
Hmm.
so but I definitely did see more women. But I think the women part of it to me was I love working with women very genuinely. I was in a sorority in college. I have a lot of
Yeah.
female friendships. I love women in general. But I think the thing that was even more interesting to me than working with women was being able to serve women, to spend my time being in the psyche of what it's like to think through that acquisition funnel. What does a woman want when she's shopping? What is she looking for?
You knew what they were looking for because you were both a customer and a
Yeah.
salesperson or a
I
marketer in
mean,
that
I'll
role.
never forget my first job at L'Oreal. I remember this manager, we were talking about, I was on the lip liner team and within
I love
like
that.
on the lip team, and then I was in charge of lip liner. And I remember this guy, we were talking about chubbies, and chubbies are like, it's a format that is not a lip liner, but it's like thicker. And
Yeah.
it's like this. This is a chubby. This kind of size is a chubby.
Okay.
And he was like, "Oh, we can't call it a chubby because no woman will ever want to buy a product called chubby because every woman wants to be thin." And I was like, who were thinking like, who are you to
Tell me.
speak on behalf of women? Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
And to
My
decide like
goodness.
what women want. So I don't know. Yeah, I think at a very young age, I was like, I just want to be part of these conversations that are helping to shape,
Hmm.
like, I mean, quite ultimately to me, it's like culture.
100%. And so at what point in your roles within the beauty companies did you think I can do this better? Or there's a white space there that I want to add a new product category because clean beauty wasn't really a thing at all.
No, I don't. Well, one of my jobs was I worked at Josie Maran Cosmetics, and one would argue she was very much a pioneer and really early in the clean beauty movement. And so I did
Uh-huh.
work very early in clean beauty, but I think your point about working for others is a good one. I recommend everybody go work for other people. I think there's so much we glamorize this idea of starting companies when you're really, really young. Like, go do it now because you don't have anything to risk. And I actually think there is some truth to that. But I also think there's some truth to learning on someone else's dime. And for me, it's like what you said. It wasn't just about learning on someone else's dime. It was gaining the confidence and getting a seat at the table, being closer to founders where I felt like being close to it, I could be like, I could do that too. And not that they weren't smart, but knowing having proximity to something makes you realize like it makes it less scary. And
Uh-huh.
I think being close, I was close to Kate Somerville. I was close to Josie Maran. Like I could see, and they had an expertise that I don't, right? They're experts in their fields in a different way. I have a different expertise that they didn't have. You know what I mean? And just realizing that like no one has everything. And so there's not really a right time to go shoot your shot. But there is something about building up your confidence and kind of gaining the resources and figuring out yourself to understand what you're good at and what you're not good at so that when you do shoot your shot, you know who you are and what your limitations are.
And when did you see that? Because it's not easy to jump from a comfortable job to something on your own.
No, so it's been 23 years I've worked in the industry now, and it's been 7 years ago that I raised the money. So for Tower 28. So there was a lot of time in between those two where I worked for other people. And frankly, I don't know if I would have, I kind of the whole time, like from the time I was in business school, I majored in marketing and entrepreneurship. So from the from 2002, when I started business school, I was telling everybody like one day I'm going to start my own business. And I didn't even really know that I was doing that. Like, like sometimes you kind of like put things out into the world, but you don't really consciously do it. You just say it because it's something
Hmm.
that you hope for. And I kept working for other people. Then all of a sudden, I was hitting 40. My daughter, I have three kids. My youngest daughter was starting preschool. The same week that I started preschool, I went to coffee with a guy that I went to business school with. And when I went to coffee with him, I said to him, I was like, okay, so I really want to go back in house. I'd been consulting. I was like, I want to go back in house, and this is what I want. I want full time. I want this. I want that. I was like, I want a seat at the table. I want equity. I want something. And he was like, I thought you wanted to do something on your own. And I was like, well, I do, except that I'm 40. I have three kids, a mortgage. My kids are in private school, and I make pretty good money. And he was like, okay, well, if you don't do it now, you'll never do it. I was like, okay, well, I don't have any money and I don't have a partner. And he said, well, if you have money, you don't need a partner because you can hire people. And I was like, well, I don't have money. And then he said, well, what if I invested half of whatever you need? And that was really what kickstarted things. And basically I didn't know that he had sold his company. So when we were in business school, he started a company after we graduated. I had gone to work for other people. And he was my first money in. And so I raised friends and family. I raised $500,000. He was the first 250. I raised another 250 from friends and family. And that was how we got things started 7 years ago.
That's incredible. I think,
Yeah.
I'm biased towards the Trojan network, but I think there's a lot to be said about keeping that network close and growing and cultivating together because everyone goes on their own path, but the convergence of those paths grows into something much bigger.
I say this to my team all the time, but you earn your reputation. And I think you should be nice to other people because it's the right thing to do, but also it pays dividends, right? Like people like to work with people that they like, and people like to see people do well that they like. And do business with them. And so I think it's really important that you like, again, like I really believe in collaboration over competition. I think if you can help people, if you're in a place to help somebody else, like even if it doesn't come back to you, which I really believe that it does, even if it's like not a linear, like it doesn't have to be from that
Hmm.
same person, but like life kind of works that way. I don't know. Whether it is, and now, do I invest in other people? I try to invest my time. I try to invest my money when I can. I have chosen to really work with a lot of women in my life, not only through the people that I employ, but like when I raised private equity money about a year and a half ago, and I intentionally chose a private equity partner who was a woman. I deal with all women at Sephora, basically. Um,
Hmm.
So, I think it's like it's a deliberate choice how you invest your time, your money, and your relationships.
Agree with all of that. What about your first hire for Tower 28? How do you get started? You raise your
Yeah.
money, and then what's the first step?
Yeah. So, I mean, my path is a little bit different because I have worked in the same industry for so long. So I raised the money, and then I knew it would be about a year or a year and a half to make product, because that's just how long it takes to make products if you're not buying off the shelf. Buy off the shelf means, like, if I wanted to go and buy an existing formula that has already been tested, has already had compatibility, and buy it turnkey, which means like they've tested it with these particular materials, these particular packages, and like they'll make the whole thing for me and I just put my logo on it. If I did that, I could have launched very quickly. But I knew from the very beginning that that's never how I want to develop. I always want to make sure that what we're making is actually true innovation. And our products are designed for sensitive skin. So I've also had eczema my entire adult life. And so I really wanted to make sure that our products were not only clean, but safe for sensitive skin. And so I knew it would be a year and a half until I actually had revenue. So early part was like, okay, well, how do you then, if you're not going to be revenue generating for a year and a half, but there's a lot of other things that you need to do. And I was pretty afraid of running out of money. And so my first three employees were one. My first employee was this girl, Jess, who's still with me. Her husband was a coworker of my husband. And they had met at a cocktail party for work or something. And she had told my husband, "Oh my God, my greatest dream in life is to work in beauty." And my husband was like, "Oh, maybe you should tell my wife." And so we got introduced, and she was like, "I'll work for free. I'll do anything you want." And I was like, "Well, free is a great price." And so, sure, do you want to start interning for me? Yeah. So that was my second, Helena, which was pretty quickly after that. I spoke at FITM. I was there as a speaker in a class, and I just finished raising the money. And I was talking about it. I was like, "Oh, and now I just raised this money and I'm going to go do this thing." And she DM'd me and was like, "I want to work for you. I want to be a part of this. I'll do it for free." And I was
Wow.
like, again, free is a good price. Now I would never do that. I would never hire. Now I pay all my interns, like whatever. And by the way, I started paying them pretty quickly after that. But at the time, it was just like I think so much of it is I got lucky that like these people wanted to join me. They'd never had jobs before, by the way. And I had this like hubris that I could teach them because I had been working in the industry. And I think the great thing about that was, yes, there are some things I could teach them, but two, I learned a lot from them too, because, I didn't know a ton about like social media and social things like influencer and who the cool I didn't grow up watching at the time. It was like YouTube and that's kind of what was popular. Um, but all these Instagram influencers and everything, like I didn't know about that. And they were able to teach me those things actually. So I think it was pretty incredible that I got them in the beginning. And then my third, Rosalie, we always joke about this, but she was my nanny. And then COVID hit and I was like, "Oh, well, do you want to rate some POs instead?" And so now she works in our ops department.
Well, it's great to bring on a team of people that not only were passionate about the same product you were selling, but people that you trusted and that wanted to
For
work.
sure.
And
No, and I
and you
got
all bring different expertise.
and I think the great thing about that is that they also grew with me too. So I think they were early on. I think so much of what you need in those early days is like, and people ask me all the time, like, who should I hire first? And like, it's so hard because in the beginning, what you really need is you need like Swiss Army knives. You need people who can do a lot of different things. And then as you get bigger, you need like depth and not breadth. And that's hard too. It's like it's a hard transition to make, but I feel like those early girls I owe so much to. They did so much. And I'm so
I
glad they're
love
still with
that.
me.
What was the biggest thing you learned when you were building your company that you couldn't have foreseen as a startup founder?
I mean, I don't think I ever thought that it was going to be easy. And certainly nobody says that it's easy. I don't know if I knew it would be so hard on my attention and my ability to be present in the rest of my life.
It's difficult.
It's very difficult. And I think people talk about this idea of balance, and I have 3 kids. I am a mom. I'm also a daughter. I'm also a sister. I'm also a friend. We play a lot of roles in our lives. And I think it's not realistic that you're able to do everything 100% all the time. But I try to make sure I show up for the people in my life. And I don't know. I think it's, again, I don't know that that was a surprise necessarily, but I think maybe on both sides, I think I didn't know that mentally and in my heart that it would be so taxing. But yet at the same time, I don't know if I would have thought it was as, it's like the highs are so high and the lows are so low.
Well, your impact goes beyond those people that just buy your product. And like you said, you're building confidence among so many women that it's it's got to be a lot of burden to hold to know that you're doing such great things, but also there's so many people that could be impacted beyond what you even know.
There's like two sides to every coin, right? As they say.
Mm-hmm.
And, recently, so all of our products are 100% compliant with the National Eczema Association. From the very beginning, we've made our products that way because I've had eczema my entire adult life. So it was really important to me that we avoid irritation and we were just like, had that kind of piece of credibility, or proof point. So also from the very beginning, we've been following the NEA. I joined the board last year, and as part of the board, I've really gotten to know the NEA better. We made a scholarship contribution last year to the National Eczema Association's Expo, which is the largest gathering of eczema sufferers in the world. So they once a year, everybody comes together, and I think there are like 500 or 700 people that come together, and it is not only the sufferers, but the caretakers and the dermatologists and the toxicologists and everybody comes together in this expo. So eczema has a propensity to happen in both children and people of color. And so the combination of that is like, it can be expensive if you're a kid and your mom wants to come and then your siblings come, and you know what I mean? Like, it's expensive for people to travel, to do all these things. And so we gifted a donation to the National Eczema Association for this year and 3 more years. And we gave them the money. They handed the scholarship. We just had the expo, and they were like, Amy's going to host a meet and greet to meet you. And we had this little booth there, and 42 people came that got scholarships. And I didn't know
Wow.
that many people had gotten scholarships because I wasn't a part of giving up. We just gave them the money because they wanted it to be very private, and like they wanted to do it that way because I don't know if people didn't want to be public about the fact that they were scholarship recipients. They shouldn't have to be,
Mm-hmm.
which I fully align with. But we had 42 people come to meet me, and I will tell you, is one of the highlights of my career to be able to like meet the customer that I wanted so badly to help and in this journey, and like to give confidence to that person who hasn't had it. I used to work for, like I said, Josie and Katie, and I used to write all their speeches. And inevitably, there would always be an editor who would say, "Did you know that you were going to be successful?" And they would always say, "Of course I knew. I always knew this was going to work. I always knew." And I remember, and I still feel this way. I'm like, I had no idea that this was going to work. I think the danger of working in the same industry for a long time and then trying to do something is that you become a cynic. You're like, I've seen everything. It is so hard to break through. Like, you've just seen all the bad things happen, and you can be very like almost negative about it. And so, no, I did not even think that this was a possibility. But like, very genuinely, that moment is one that I will always remember. To be in the physical space with the actual people you are trying to impact and have them look at you and thank you directly for like this thing that you did and say the words back to you. It was literally like these things that we talk about internally where like, we want to be a safe space for sensitive skin. We want to make, beauty for sensitive skin cool and accessible and fun, because that's what makeup is. And they literally said those words back to me. I can buy it at Sephora. I'm a little bit woo-woo, and so I do believe that you have to like almost put it out there and see it in order for it to happen. And it was literally that moment where like I felt like I won, like I did it.
Well, I was going to ask, what was your definition of success? But something like that goes beyond, I imagine, what you thought from the beginning. And then also just growing with your brand and including clean products from the beginning and then including representation and ensuring that everyone within the beauty industry knows what your values are, and it extends beyond just you and the things that you learn along the way.
I mean, listen, I feel like I I'm on both sides. One part of me is like still super ambitious and super like, I want to be an international brand. I want to be a household name. I want, you know what I mean? Like we're rolling out into the Middle East this year. We rolled into the UK last year. We're going into Europe and like we are doing so many things and we are so ambitious and so excited for the future. But then I temper that with these moments where sometimes I'm like, it's like what you just said. I'm also like, I feel like I've already won. Like I've already done the thing that I wanted to do. And I think that it's important as an entrepreneur to stop and pause and not just always let the goalposts keep moving. Because we're like, I think everyone who wants to be an entrepreneur, you can't do it if you're not ambitious. But like, so inevitably the goalpost keeps moving. And I think there's something really humbling about that and really motivating about it. But at the same time, what's the point of doing it if you don't stop and enjoy it sometimes too? And I think the thing that has showed up for me over and over again in very genuine sincerity is the fact that we've been able to do something that matters to so many people. And the number of people that come up to me and literally say like, you've saved my skin. This is better than Accutane. That have said, you've changed my skin, or finally I can wear makeup. It's literally the reason I did this.
That's beautiful. I mean, I'm sure people come up to you and they say, you've done this like it was so easy. Look at this beautiful journey you've had, and you've been the one on the inside working through the kinks and building and going over the obstacles. And it's definitely not easy, but you do make it seem not seamless. But it's something, at least for me, I look to other women entrepreneurs and going into new spaces and seeing that there are women out there like you to be in those positions. And it's inspiring, to say the least. I know that it doesn't come without the obstacles in the road and the hard work, but having that team around you and, like you said, being curious and ready to move past the difficulties and working together is something that has clearly led you to a space and a successful marker, even though it's just another part along the journey.
I appreciate that. You know, I feel like there's definitely like so many people that I think it's easy. We live in this era where it's like Instagram versus reality so much, right? Like
Yeah.
it's easy to look at our trajectory, and people do say to me all the time, they're like, oh, what's it like to have to be like an overnight success, you know? And I always say, I'm like, it's true. I think what's happened has happened quickly, right? We're the number one most productive brand at Sephora. We were the highest growth brand in this past year. Like we've had tremendous success, right? Like we've like doubled and then we tripled. Like just the business has been really good. And like you said, it doesn't come without its drawbacks and problems and things like that. But overall, like I think it's been, for sure, we've had a lot of success, which has been lovely. But it's to say that it's like an overnight success is also not totally true either, right? Like I've also been doing this for a really long time. And I feel like it's like success is this combination of like luck and opportunity and hard work.
What do you think was whether it was innate or a characteristic or a skill that you learned, what do you think, if you could, because it's difficult, if you could pinpoint to, if you had to prioritize your most impactful skill or value that has led you to this point?
I think maybe in terms of value, I think I really do care, and I care about people. I care about the customer. I like my customer. Like I've worked for brands where people talk about their customer in a way that's like not super, I don't know, respectful even, you know what I mean? I like love our customer. I care a lot about value as a person, right? So I respect the fact that people have to work hard to make their money. From the very beginning, my goal was to make an accessible price point in a prestige environment. So I wanted you to be able to shop at Sephora, carry the little black and white bag, but not pay $26 for lip gloss. I wanted you to pay $16 for lip gloss, right? Because I wanted us as a brand to be a brand that was accessible in a way that was like, I don't know, like, I don't know if you've ever had like Fresh Brothers pizza, but I always think about this. Like when my kids were little, you could like pay like an extra dollar and you could get like the sauce that had the veggies hidden in it.
Yeah.
like extra veggies or something like that. Like they would grind more carrots and or something in it. And I think about that a lot of times. Like I think if I can offer a product that is just as good performance wise, maybe even better, but I can make the product better for you. And you're not
Hmm.
having to make that trade off. And I don't even need to like force you because you're like, I'm going to buy it because it works and because it's cute and like it's all the other things that I want. And by the way, it's also an accessible price point and it's good for you. Then I've kind of done the whole thing for you and you haven't felt it. And so I know that's kind of always been my thing is I really care. And then I think even on the employee level, I have a lot of friends who are founders and I think everyone always says like just wait until like an employee sues you and like knock wood that it's not to say it could never happen. But and it's not to say that like people haven't quit and I haven't let go of people. But I think that I've been very genuinely, I care a lot about the people that I bring on, even when it doesn't work. I care about their future. I care about their time here. I want people to be proud of the work that they've done. And I think that that has defined a lot of my experience for better or for worse.
Like I said before, I think the value aspect, like you mentioned, from both your own values of clean beauty and being skin safe and understanding everyone's concerns, and then also the value of the price point is so important because I feel like we're only now at this pivotal point where people are reading the ingredient labels, not only on their food, but also on the things that they're putting on their skin, which is just as important.
Yeah.
And to know that the products you're picking from your company and the Tower 28 brand are withholding that is incredible. And it gives you the trust as a customer or consumer to buy multiple products and then, see where the innovations go with future ones. So
Yeah. No,
thank
thank
you
you.
from the customer's point of view. But I
Yay.
like to end every podcast that I have with the question, what does the hustle mean to you? And you've explained so much about how you've gotten here. In your own words, if you could explain that, that would be
Yeah.
amazing.
So it's funny you say the word hustle because we have a set of values at the company and they're called our Hawk values. And one of it's hustle, ownership, cool, and Kaizen. Kaizen is actually a word that means like continuous improvement. The H in hustle is really meant to, it's one of our values. And it is literally the example we often give is if you go to the store for bananas and they tell you there's no bananas here, do you just come back and say there's no bananas? Or do you figure out, you know what I mean? Do you figure it out? Is there another store that has bananas? How would you go and buy bananas? If you had to, would you go to like the smoothie shop and figure out if they had excess bananas? Do you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
figuring things out, I think is a huge part of our culture. It's funny, but yeah, that's what it means to me.
I love
Just
that.
figuring
I
it out.
think, well, it's like what you said. It's when you're in the beginning, when you're hiring someone and you want the Swiss Army knife, you want them to have that mentality and hustling to get things done in the beginning is what you need. And then you need someone to grow and adapt and be with you along that process and along the way to create new products or go cross obstacles and then continue that success. And then where you are today, taking that moment and saying like, we've done so much and you are impacting lives in
Yeah.
such a positive way. So
Yeah.
great characteristics to have. So thank you so much for coming on The Hustle by Hanna. I really appreciate it. And it's truly, like I said, it's so inspiring and everyone should go buy the products because they're fantastic.
Thanks.